Start selling security to your consumers.
Well, here we are. You can tell by the music that was playing there, Myra. We are here for another episode of The Source. Myra Flynn, thank you for joining us from Source Technologies again.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Brent.
Well, I'm excited about this episode because being somebody who's not in banking and just kind of market this product and try to find a security solution, I didn't really know much. I'm going to admit about Check 21. So I'm excited to learn from you because this is what you do. So maybe we just start as we talk about Check 21, just explaining to the audience like what is Check 21 and how it's affecting MICR toner and checks and everything today.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot took that Check 21 eliminated the need for MICR, and that's not the case at all. So the enactment of Check 21 has created a lot of confusion around those MICR requirements. As of today, the Federal Reserve mandates that all original checks have the MICR line printed using MICR toner. So when we're talking about the MICR line, that funky font that has the account routing number and the check number, that all has to be printed with magnetized toner, MICR toner, right? What I suggest always to kind of put it into perspective is, when you're depositing a check through your mobile banking app, right? If you read those T's and C's, it's going to state that you have to retain the original check for 7 to 10 business days. Somebody last week told me their bank said 30 days. Whatever that timeline is, the reasoning is that if there's any question to the validity of that check, you're going to be asked to present the original check to your local bank branch. And if that MICR line's not printed on it, is not printed with MICR toner, they're going to reject that check. Check 21 was enacted in 2008. That's what allows the optical capture of the checks. That's how we're able to do our remote deposits through our banking app, right? But the whole purpose of Check 21 was to speed up the processing, right? Because banks share, the receiving bank shares that original check with the depositing bank, the bank that the check's being drawn off of. So it was enacted to speed up that process of clearing the checks between all of these banks. It was never meant to replace the need for MICR. In the mind of Federal Reserve, they look at optical capture and that MICR toner as complementing one another.
So, since you said it's 2008 when Check 21 was enacted,
yes,
and obviously, MICR's been around, and obviously we talked about that in previous episodes. The need for that became very important in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with fraud. So now with this Check 21, are you finding that companies are taking like MICR still seriously, or how are they reviewing compliance with Check 21?
Yeah, so the short answer is some do, but honestly, Brent, most don't. Often MICR is treated as that set it and forget it until something breaks, until somebody gets a rejection fee or, audits, fraud. They're changing their ERP or their banks. That's usually the only time. It's that age old, that's the way we've always done it. What I see in the field, again, it's that reactive or ad hoc, right? Ownership of check printing is usually is unclear. Is it, accounts payable? Is it the controller? Is it IT? That we need to be looking at, have there been any recent test prints sent to the bank to make sure that they're in compliant? Are the drawers where that check stock's being placed within the printer, are they locked? Are we using a mixed fleet of just OEM printers? Manual audit trails, that's another huge thing, making sure that all of your check are accounted for, that they're deposited for the amount to whom they are being deposited. Is the company doing these manual audits, or are they, native to their check printer or their ERP system? Check 21 didn't eliminate the need for clean MICR. It just shifted the responsibility, right? If your MICR line or control slips, you're going to get those rejections. Your bank's going to reject the check. It's not going to deposit. If you get too many rejections, the bank's going to imply fees, right? So when we're talking to our customers, I like to say, let's do a 20-minute, MICR health check, your check printing workflow. And so there's kind of 5 points that I would point our partners to having these conversations with their customers, right? Bank acceptance. When was the last time they sent a test check to confirm the readability of their checks, right? Device controls. Are they using secure MICR firmware features? Are there role-based access to that printer or into the accounting software that allows you to print? Are there role-based access security put into place? Do we have those lockable trays, right? We want to look at the media controls. Are we doing dual custody for that check stock? Are there physical locks where the check stock is stored, as well as where it's being placed into the printer, right? Are we tracking that inventory? The fourth one would be process controls. Who can print? Who can approve? Who can sign? And is there a separation of each one of these duties, right? And then the last one would be evidence. What logs, what policies, and when was the last time that they reviewed it, right? And when we're looking at these 5 different aspects, I would recommend an annual at minimum to go through those 5 points to see where everything is at. Then I would also add, events. Are we changing our bank? Is the customer changing their bank? Are they upgrading or changing their ERP system? Are they opening additional locations? Has the audit cycle changed? Or have there been any recent rejected checks or fraud incidents that would make us want to go back and make sure? A great qualifying question to ask when you're on a call is, who signs off on your MICR review each year? And when was your last bank acceptance test? This is going to get your customer to start thinking, oh, wow, we haven't looked at any of that stuff, right? Because most companies have not.
I think that's great. And the 5-point health check is perfect ammunition, I think, for a reseller as they're stepping into their client's office there. So, but good stuff, really good stuff. I imagine like what you're running into is that there's often a lot of these end users that aren't looking at this, and that there may be some additional requirements that they must be looking at just to be compliant. So like when they're talking to someone who's like implementing their ERP and the operations, what sort of things should they be looking at to remain compliant?
Yeah, so companies need to treat MICR as a control stack across their ERP, printers, operations, not just a font and toner choice, right? They need to align with their bank's acceptance criteria and their auditor, right? So some ERP controls that companies can implement are, again, that role-based access and MICR, checker approvals for check runs, vendor bank account changes. You want to make sure that there is no duplicate check numbers per account. Make sure that ERP does not allow for duplicates. Make sure that there's controls around who can audit, void, and reprint. We need to have lockable check templates. And there needs to be some controls around when those templates need to be changed. Another really big one that I always suggest that every company does is a positive pay file. And positive pay file automatically generates typically out of your ERP system, and it sends it to the bank. And it's not foolproof. I've had customers who have been victims of check fraud, even though they had the positive pay in place. But it's another, there's no one foolproof way to prevent check fraud, right? So you have to layer it. Every aspect of that check, the creating of the check to the point that that check is submitted to the bank for deposit, but the positive pay will allow your bank to see, okay, this company has issued all of these checks for this check amount, and they're going to double check them as they're being presented for deposit. Audit logs need to be tied to the general ledger and bank reconciliation and make sure that everything's coming back in as it was sent out. Whitelisting, your print routing to approve to those approved micro devices. You need to make sure that those print jobs are being encrypted and decrypted. Vendor master hygiene, making sure that you have a two-person approval for new vendors, for any kind of bank edits, and make sure that there's something in your ERP that's going to alert if any of those things are changed so that you're aware of them. From the print and device controls, we need to make sure that the micro firmware features are enabled, that micro module is restricted, that voiding and reprints rules are in place, that you're utilizing that audit log that's native to a secure microprinter. And most importantly is that fuser optimization, like we talked about in our last video, to make sure that that toner is adhering to the check stock to prevent chemical alteration, right? Approved microtoner, always make sure you're using OEM microtoner that's tested. Make sure that microline is calibrated and in line. There's a little plastic device that you can get. It's the micro ruler to show you this is where it should be on your check, and every company should have one of those micro rulers. And then you have your operational controls, right? Dual custody for check stock. Signature security. So your digital overlays need to make sure that those are encrypted and protected, that you have second signer thresholds. If, for instance, when I'm saying second signer thresholds, if it's over $1,000, you need a wet signature, or if it's over $5,000, you need two signatures. Those type of thresholds to make sure that you're within limits. Monitoring and tracking those rejected fees, investigating the causes, and then going back and figuring out how you can to resolve for those, But when do you reevaluate? Again, bank changes. If you're changing your bank, you need to reevaluate. You need to send a current check to that bank to have it validated by that bank. ERP upgrades or changes. You're adding new locations. Mergers and acquisitions is another one. If you hear of one of your customers doing merger acquisitions, is a good time to look at those check printing from both companies. Talk track, micro compliance isn't just printing, it's controls, right? And Source Tech helps you lock down who can print, what they can print, and where that check stock lives, in addition to adding the security to protect that check once it leaves the printer.
Ton of information. And as you're explaining this, I can see all the ammunition that a reseller has to go into to the end user. I imagine Source Tech has some like cheat sheets and some help guides, like checklists that we could potentially like share here with our our resellers on the video?
Absolutely. So I have a battle card that I can share with you, and our battle cards are separated into two. When we're talking about checks, we divide companies into two groups: general AP and banks and credit unions. And so I do have a battle card for each one of those categories. I'll make sure I have that. And then I also have talk tracks. I have a nice little list of talk tracks to help our reseller partners navigate that question, initiate the conversation, and navigate those questions. And I'll make sure that I get those over to you, Mr. Brent.
Sounds good. We'll make sure that we have those links to those where they can get those downloaded. You can get those downloaded right here in this video. Myra, I appreciate you explaining Check 21, giving us some great options for resellers to think about as they consider how they're going to approach some of their end users for opportunity. That is very helpful. Like I said, we'll put some of these links in this video. We'd love for you to subscribe to this video, the channel here on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us, again, get the word out. And again, Myra, thank you once again for joining us for The Source. And we hope this is useful. And we'll look forward to sharing with you some more in our next episode. Thanks, Myra.
Thanks, Brent.